Thank you guys for joining again. This will be part 2 of some facts and more facts about the self-styled Pastor Charles Taze Russell, the founder of the modern day Jehovah Witnesses. This little leaflet it's historical and is based more on his personal life, his character, and some of they question him in courtrooms even about his doctrines. So later on, I will do a video explaining their beliefs, their heresies, their false doctrines. So thank you guys. This is part 2, and I will do a part 3 as well because it's a little long. So here we go. In the charges made against him. By denying these charges, he claimed for himself a high scholastic standing, having a knowledge of the dead languages, having taken a course in theology, systematic and historical theology, ordination, church affiliation, and so on. But now, what are the facts as they were brought out by the examination on March 17, 1913? As to his scholastic standing, he had sworn that what was said about it was not true. Under the examination, he admitted that at most he had attended school only 7 years of his life, that the public school, and that he had left school when he was about 14 years of age, just at the opening of the adolescent period, when the directional element is necessary in a boy's life. Do you know the Greek? Asked the attorney. Oh yes, was Russell's reply. Here he was handed a copy of the New Testament in Greek by Westcott and Hort, and asked to read the letters of the alphabet as they appeared on the top of the page 447. He did not know the alphabet. Now, asked Mr. Staunton, are you familiar with the Greek language? No, said Mr. Russell without a blush. When he saw that he was caught, then he admitted that he knew nothing about the Latin and the Hebrew, and neither had he ever taken a course in philosophy, systematic theology, and neither had he ever attended any of the higher schools of learning. A trap had been set for him at every one of these points, and having been caught in the first, he thought it best for him to own up before he was shown up. As it was, he was shown up. This is a man who goes about claiming that he alone has a proper understanding of the scriptures, condemning the translators of the Bible and denouncing all ministers and teachers of the word except himself and his little satellites as ignorant, empty-headed, and deceitful. Russell has made quite a free use of the dead languages in his book, but this is evidently not done by himself, but another, with the end in view of misleading the ignorant and trying to catch the educated. He has familiarized himself with a few big Greek terms which he had become angelicized, such as apocalypsis, epiphania, parousia, parakletos, etc., but his own meaning into and puts his own meaning into them, and then goes about using them before his audiences. And those who do not know any better think him a highly educated man. This is the man also who condemns all books and papers except those written by himself or published by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Now, as to his ordination, remember that the self-styled pastor is still under oath, and that he says the oath is sacred. It is indeed sacred to him. Is it true that you were ever ordained? As asked the counsel. It is not true, replied Mr. Russell. But my counsel takes him in hand, and being wilful, it is difficult to keep the arch heretic to the point. His worship, the magistrate, was appealed to, and Russell is informed that he must answer yes or no. Now, said Mr. Staunton, you never were ordained by a bishop, clergyman, presbytery, council, or any body of men living. After a considerable pause and his eyes fixed on his feet in the witness box, he said, I never was. He was caught again, and he was not abashed. This is a gentleman that gives himself forth all over the world as a fully accredited minister of the gospel. What a low standard of morals he must have. What a seared conscience he must possess. He swore he would tell the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth, and that under the eyes of Almighty God. But how artful is he even under oath in devising falsely? In other words, what a fabricator. We now come to Russell's domestic life. It was such as to make life intolerable to his wife and to justify her in leaving him and afterwards suing for a limited divorce, which one court granted and a higher one on appeal confirmed, at the same time most severely censuring Pastor Russell for his conduct, which the court describes as insulting, domineering, and overbearing to a degree which made life intolerable to a sensitive Christian woman. But Russell swore here that his wife had not divorced him and that the court had not granted alimony from him. Under fire by Mr. Staunton, he was compelled to confess that the court did divorce him from his wife, though not absolutely, and that the court did grant his wife alimony. Had Mrs. Russell sued for absolute divorce, she could not have obtained alimony, which she needed, in the divorce that was granted. Neither party have the privilege of remarrying. A limited divorce, which is a divorce from bed and board, is just as bad as the absolute divorce, which is a breaking of the marriage tie. In order that my reader may understand this, I quote from the charge to the jury by Judge Collier, who was on the bench at the time. He said to the jury, "In this state, one of the causes for divorce is the offering of such indignities to the person of the wife or husband as to render his or her condition intolerable and life burdensome, and therefore forcing him or her to withdraw from the society of the wife or husband." That is this case, and it is totally immaterial whether it is a divorce from bed and board or a divorce from bonds of matrimony, because in both cases the family relation is dissolved and everyone is harmed if the law is not complied with. I mention these things because it is my solemn duty to do so that you will understand it, and I have no doubt you do. With that in view, examine the evidence. This lady must satisfy you, gentlemen, under the libel she has filed, clearly by the strength of the evidence that such personal indignities were put upon her from time to time, continuously for some period of time, not occasionally, but continuously for some period of time, so as to render her condition intolerable and life burdensome, and force her to remove her from her husband's house. You all know your common sense teaches you that without a judge telling you that every little spat between a husband and wife after living 14 years together, it is not cause for divorce. Every little disagreement, not speaking sometimes, or being rough are not causes for divorce, because the marriage relation covers all that. The vows they take, as you all know, cover all that. It must be something more than that. It must be such indignities to her person as to cause her to leave her husband because of the indignities cast upon her, making her life burdensome and her condition intolerable. Now, with that definition, apply the evidence. Another rule of law is that it must not be partly her fault. It must be all the fault of her husband. You are to pass upon the facts, and you are to judge of the circumstances of these people, their intelligence, their manner of living, their pursuits, and everything of that kind. You will judge and say whether these indignities, if they were committed, caused her to feel that her condition was intolerable and her life burdensome, and she would have to go away. If they did, and I have only mentioned some of them, then she would be entitled to a divorce from bed and board, and be entitled to a divorce absolutely, if that is true. There is no difference between a divorce from bed and board and a divorce absolutely. Don't get mixed about that. One is just as bad as the other. It takes the same amount of cause in the one case as in the other. The divorce was given and the alimony granted. Mrs. Russell had a considerable property in his own name. He tried to practice fraud upon his wife by transferring his property to corporations and societies over which he himself had absolute and complete control. Referring to this fact, the court said the purpose of his whole transaction was to deprive his wife of her drower interest, and was a fraud upon her. Mrs. Russell was compelled to petition the court to compel her husband to pay alimony, and an attachment was ordered. Judge J.R. McFerrin, who was on the bench at the time and had heard the petition, expressed the opinion of the court in the following words: "The answer of the respondent to the rule for attachment is in large part a reiteration of the defense set up to the application to fix alimony. So far as he is concerned, it has been adjudicated against him that his property was disposed of by him in fraud of his wife's right, and his iteration and reiteration of denial of this charge is at least in bad taste, especially in view of the circumstances surrounding the sale by the sheriff of the Arch Street property upon a trifling judgment against him. This was the Bible house worth $40,000 conveyed by sheriff's deed to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society for $50, and on judgment of the less than $200. Transfers were all made to the society which he controls absolutely. The transfers were made so far as the respondent is concerned, without the right to do as against his wife. To refuse an attachment would allow any respondent to put his property in the hands of a friend who is amenable to his will, and then defy the power of the court." Wow, so we see here that Russell Taze was just selling his properties. All right. When Russell saw that he had failed in this, he attempted another course of fraud. He sought to evade payment fixed by the court by fleeing from one state to another, making it necessary for his wife to get an extradition order, which she did, and which led to the condemnation of the cunning pastor by a third court and the increase of the alimony. Commenting on Russell's defense and conduct on this occasion, Judge Delady said, "There is not one syllable in the testimony to justify his repeated aspersions on her character and her mental condition, nor does he intimate in any way that there was any difference between them other than that she did not agree with him in his view of life and methods of conducting their business. He says himself she is a woman of high intellectual qualities and perfect moral character, while he denied in a general way that he attempted to belittle his wife as she claimed. The general effect of his own testimony is strong confirmation of her allegations. We have not space here to quote to any extent from the court records of this case. All we can do is to summarize the findings, and we will give nothing but what is public property, and shall rather understate than overstate the case. From Mr. Russell's point of view, it came out in the evidence first that his conceit, egoism, and domination were such as to make life intolerable to any sensitive woman. Second, that his conduct in relation to other women was improper. Third, that one occasion that he was silent to his wives for 4 weeks. And only communicated with her by letters of a reproachful character. Fourth, that he sought by most despicable means to isolate his wife from society, and designed to get her pronounced insane in order to put her away. As to his improper conduct towards other women, that you might see that I know whereof I speak, and I am telling the truth, I will quote from Mrs. Russell's evidence upon this subject taken in the Court of Common Pleas, Number 1. She is under oath and direct examination by her attorney, Mr. Porter. Question: When did you have your first marital disagreement with your husband? Answer: The first serious trouble with my husband was what you stated this morning. The first indignity with this woman who was in the office and in our home. Question: What was the name of the girl? Answer: Rose Ball. Question: That is the girl who you spoke of a few moments ago. Answer: Yes, sir. Question: How long had she been with you before this trouble arose? Answer: She came to us in about 1884. Question: Did she live with you? Answer: Yes, sir. Question: How long did she live with you? Okay, so we're seeing here that this is in a courtroom. It's taking place where they're questioning his wife. So, answer: She was first with us for about 10 or 11 years. Oh, she was with us about 12 years. Question. Just state what you observe about your husband's conduct with this girl in your presence in your home. Answer. Previous to this time, my husband has suggested to me the idea of separation, and he said if I would agree to a separation, he would give me the house in which we were living. He said we were incompatible. Question. When was that? Answer. That was shortly before this objection was made, about 1893. We were still living in Clifton Avenue. Question. What brought about the proposition from your husband? Answer. A number of disagreements, and one thing was this. There had been letters that my husband had written to parties to which I had to make very serious objections. One of them came to me in this way. Mr. Russell had certain letters, certain envelopes that were marked personal, was printed on them, and he sent a number of these envelopes to persons that he wanted to correspond with him privately. Question. I want you to tell us what your husband did in company with this woman Rose, in your presence and in your home. Answer. One evening I spent the evening downstairs, and our library and bedroom were next to each other. Upstairs on the second floor. And I spent the evening downstairs reading, and I went upstairs about 10 o'clock to my room, and I supposed that he was either in the library or had retired. And when I went up there, I found that he was in neither place. I stepped out in the hall, and there I found that he was in his nightrobe, sitting beside Miss Ball's head, and she was in the bed. On another occasion, I found him going in there, and I found she called him in, and she said she wasn't well and wanted him in. And I objected to this. I said that it was highly improper, and I said we have people about the house, and what kind of name will be attached to this house if you do that kind of thing? And he got angry. Question. You state that you found him doing this at other times. How often after that? Answer. I found him a number of times. I don't remember how often. Question. In her room? Answer. Yes, sir. And I found him in the servant's girl room as well. And I found him locked in the servant girl's room. Question. Did he make any explanation why he was in the girl's room? Answer. No, he did not. He just got angry. Question. What did you say to him about this conduct, and what did he say? Answer. I said to him, we have a great work on our hands. And I said, in this work you and I have to walk very circumspectly before the world. Wow, this guy's Taze Russell had a nerve, huh? So, and if you are going to do things like this, what will happen? Suppose you are all right. Don't you suppose people would talk about things like this? And I said, I am not satisfied with it. And he said he wasn't going to be ruled by me. But I felt distressed about that. Question. When would he go to the watchtower in the morning? Answer. I don't remember. He generally went down alone. Question. Who would return with him? Answer. She came with him in the evenings, and they came home about 11 o'clock, and the young men that were in the office. She was the only girl, and the young man would go home, and he wouldn't allow her to go home with him, and she must wait and always go with him. Question. I want the mere fact. Did this girl Rose go home with her husband? Answer. Yes, sir. Question. And the young man came home ahead of them? Answer. Yes, sir. Question. State to the court and jury what talk, if any, you had with this girl Rose in regard to her relation with your husband, which you communicated to your husband. Answer. I told him that I had learned something that was very serious, and I didn't tell him right away. I let a day elapse until I felt I had control of myself and could talk. And then I told him that I had something very serious to tell him about this matter. He said, what is it? And I said, Rose has told me that you have been very intimate with her, and that you have been in the habit of hugging and kissing her and having her sit on your knee and fondling each other. And she tells me you bid her on no account to tell me, but she couldn't keep it any longer. She said if I was distressed about it, she felt she would have to come and make a confession to me, and she has done that. Question. What year was that? Answer: He tried to make light of it at first, and I said, husband, you can't do that. I know the whole thing. She told me straight, and I know it to be true. Well, he said he was sorry. It was true, but he was sorry. He said he didn't mean any harm. I said, I don't see how you could do and act like that without meaning harm. Question: What year was that? Answer: In the fall of 1894. Question: Did you state to your husband at this meeting any enduring terms? Answer: Yes, sir. Question: What were they? Answer: I said she tells me that one evening when you came home, I asked her when did these things occur. I said to him, she says they occurred down at the office when she stayed down there with him in the evenings after the rest had gone, and at home at any time when I wasn't around. Question: How about the endearing terms? Answer: She said one evening when she came home with him, she got inside the hall. It was late in the evening, about 11 o'clock. He put his arms around her and kissed her. This was in the vestibule before they entered the hall, and he called her his little wife, but she said, I am not your wife. And he said, I will call you daughter, and a daughter has nearly all the privileges of a wife. Question: Then what other terms were used? A. Then he said, I am like a jellyfish. I float around here and there. I touch this one and that one, and if she responds, I'll take her to me, and if not, I will float on to others. And she wrote that out so that I could remember it for sure when I would speak to him about it. And he confessed that he said those things. When here in court, Russell confessed with some difficulty that his wife had found him in his night robe in the room of Rose Ball, sitting by her head and holding holding her hand, but explained that he was only feeling her pulse. He admitted also that his wife found him locked in the room of the other servant girl, Emily Matthews, but explained that he had locked the door that the young woman might hear what he had to say to her. It is due Mr. Russell also to state that in the Court of Common Pleas he swore that he was only locked in the servant's girl in the girl's room a minute, and in our court he swore he was locked in the room but 2 minutes. But his wife has a little different story to tell about the length of time that her husband was locked in the room. Though not under oath, the oath makes no difference. Wow, that's crazy. No difference to her. She said, it was between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. I missed my husband and went in search of him. I called to him, but there was no answer. I went to Emily's room and found the door locked. I called to him and knocked on the door. I stood there for 7 or 10 minutes. Then he came out. I reprimanded him, and he only got angry and said, I will not be run by you. These are not my words, but a statement of Mrs. Russell's to my lawyers in my presence. Though I will not vouch for the truthfulness of this statement, I have all confidence in Mrs. Russell's veracity. Russell and his business corporations. In the leaflet, Mr. Russell is charged with being connected with lead, asphalt, and turpentine companies. Under his direct examination by his attorneys, he was asked, now, if these charges did appear in the Brooklyn Eagle, are any of them true? They are not true, was his most emphatic answer. Not true, not true. But when he was forced into the witness box by the defense and learned that we had the facts about these companies on hand and the charters of them in our possession, he made a clean breast of the whole thing. He confessed being a stockholder in the Pittsburgh Asphaltum Co., which afterwards became the California Asphaltum Co., the organizer of the Salic Brick Co., which he entirely managed from the Bible House and Arch Street, Pittsburgh, the Brazilian Tarpenting Co., in which he had a controlling interest, a cemetery company located in Pittsburgh, and the United States Coal and Coke Co., with capital stock of 100,000. It should have been most humiliating to swear to one thing and then, when facing the facts again under oath, to be compelled to confess to the very opposite. What do you call this? Is it strange that the jury brought down the verdict, no bail? But there is also the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society. This is professedly a religious organization having as the end of its existence the propagation of Christian knowledge. Originally, 7 persons composed this society. In the evidence taken here, it came out that there were only 5 in the society now, Russell being the head and president, and one William E. Van Amberg, the secretary and treasurer. This Watchtower and Bible Tract Society was formerly Zion Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pittsburgh. Into this society, the so-called International Bible Students, Russell's followers, about 100,000 strong, as Russell says, paid their money. In 1912, there was paid into this society in cash donations alone no less than 202,000 for every 10 cent at any one time by any person there is allowed for that person. If they wish to make the application for a one voting share, the voting takes place on the first Saturday. All right, thank you guys. This concludes the second part, and I will post the third part soon. So, thank you guys for watching, and share, like, and subscribe. God bless you.